All right, I'm going to show you how you can create a bowl on a hump mold. So this is a plaster hump mold. All I did to create this was just pour some plaster into a bowl and then popped it right back out. And this is really handy for when you're trying to make bowls very quickly and relatively effectively. So I have here a canvas mat. Underneath it is my clay slab. The slab is just a flat piece of clay. And then underneath that is another canvas mat. Now, I want to get this slab to be a little bit thinner. And then you'll also notice too that I've already started making it flatter. One thing that I can point out is if you roll this way, it's going to elongate it towards the direction you're rolling. So if I want it to be a round bowl, I most likely want to start off with an even size shape all the way around. Okay, so I do see that it's a little bit wider than it is tall here. So I'm going to go ahead and roll it this direction. You do need to have a canvas mat between your roller and the clay. And then with even pressure, you want to roll all the way through. So you can see that I'm starting to get some length, and it's mostly over here. So I'm going to keep working on it. Now you don't want your slab to be too thin because that could create other problems when you're trying to create it on the form. So this is a pretty decent size. The thickness is pretty good too. I might go ahead and roll it just a little bit more. So let's see what we have. Now, one thing is that when I am putting this onto the form, it's got this texture on it right now that is basically a remnant of the canvas mat. So you're going to want to take a wooden tool of some sort. I have here what's called a rib, and you're going to want to go over the whole thing and just smooth it out. Now, you can work on top, directly on top of the table, and that would give you a nice smooth finish. But I would wait until after you have finished rolling on the rolling pin. And you have to be careful because the clay will suction to the surface if it's a smooth surface. So I like to go through, smooth it, and then just make sure that I'm consistently lifting it and not letting it sit for too long. This was a rather dry piece of clay, so it's going to have a lot more cracks in it than your clay you're working with, which is fresh. Alrighty, so there is some water at each of your seats. I want you to be cautious about using too much water, because if you use a ton of water, you end up with just a whole bunch of mud. So be wary of that. Now I have my mold here. At this point, I can set this piece of clay down on my mold. I want to try to get it even. And then you want to massage the clay until it wraps around your form. Now you do want to be careful with a very soft piece of clay. It's very easy to make that piece of clay very thin in spots. So I am just working it around until I've got a bowl shape in my clay. And massaging it is key, because if you just try to push it, you're going to get suctioned. If you just try to push it, then you're going to get some issues with it's cracking a lot more, and with it's not totally, or it just stretching from the top. So let me push that down, and once I have that, the next step is taking a wooden tool that has a point and going around the clay and cutting it out. Now I'm going to keep this clay because I want to make some little feet with it. You can make feet in a couple different ways. You can make feet by taking some clay and rolling it into a ball and doing this 4 times and sticking those onto your project. Or you could do a coil, which is a little more complicated. It would basically mean that you would have to roll out a clay snake and then attach it in a ring on your project. So right now it is bowl shaped, but it's not necessarily very neat yet. Also, keep in mind that if your clay is very wet, or maybe you were not quite massaging the clay, you just kind of pushed it, it's going to be a little floppy. And you have to be careful with that. Now, I have provided some sponges. You can kind of go around with the tool and smooth out your edges a little bit, but keep in mind my clay is a little tiny bit dry, so it's going to hold its shape a little bit better. If you're finding your clay is super wet and isn't coming off of here, what you can do is you can bring it over to the hair dryers. You can blow dry it a little bit, and so it will dry out. Now I have some sponges. You can take the sponges, dip them in the water, go around the edge and just clean up your edges. And that slip will mix into any of those little cracks too. That's the wet clay that's on your sponge, and it'll help kind of fill some of the cracks. And so you can go in, you can add things to the edge, you can do textures and things to it. You can use a wooden tool and you can roll over those edges a little bit more and get an even thinner edge if you want. You can even cover up any little cracks you might find around your piece using a wooden tool. And some of those wooden tools are shaped very much like fingers too, so you can kind of get into the grooves. I like to use wooden tools to do textures. I'm going to show you how to attach some clay so you can do some feet. Once you have those rolled out, it's a matter of attaching them, which is going to require that you do a little bit of what we call scoring and slipping. So I'm going to score both the balls of clay, and I'm going to apply water generously to the areas that I just scratched into the clay. This is going to create runny clay, known as slip. And then once it dries, the slip will harden and you'll get, you will get some nice, it'll stick like glue basically. Alrighty. So I like to put the feet on and just kind of move it around a little bit. And like I said, decorating it is the last step, and having fun with that is important. So there you have it. That's my bowl so far. And I can go ahead and play around with this and add cool designs. And yeah, pretty easy, right? Well, I hope you have fun and I hope you enjoyed this video.